Hello, hello, hello. I think I have everything here that I need. Let me just make sure that I have all my pieces because we can make this as quickly and as painless as possible. Okay. Hello, 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 everyone. We are working on our 11th, no. We are working on our 9th block. And our 9th block is called Windflower. And it is part of the Jolly Bar 5 Quilt Along. And so the Jolly Bar 5 Quilt Along, here's the book here. This is a Jolly Bar book. This is presented by Fat Quarter Shop. This Jolly Bar book is the size of a Jolly Bar. So a Jolly Bar is half of a layer cake. So Jolly Bars are considered pre-cuts. Pre-cuts are usually sample, if you will, of all of the fabrics in a collection. And so the pre-cuts usually range from about 40 to 42 different, or 40 to 42 cuts, and then depending on how many fabrics are in the collection will depend on how many repeats you will have in it. So if there are 20 in the collection, you will get at least 2 repeats, and then of course something will be 3 repeats. So it just depends on how many repeats are there. So the Jolly Bar is 5 by 10. It's the same size as the book, and with every Jolly Bar that you get from the Fat Quarter Shop, you also get a free pattern to go with it. So Jolly Bars are exclusive to the Fat Quarter Shop, and you can absolutely pick up your copies right before this holiday season. Usually they ship in about a week. I haven't waited longer than that for anything that they have had in stock. So this is the book that we're using. In this book there are 20 patterns, so there are plenty of quilts that you can make. The unique thing about this is that all of the quilts are made up of one block that's repeated over and over and over again. So you're making the same block to create the quilt. Hey darling, how are you doing? So for this one that we're working on, this is the Windflower Block, and it's going to look like this. And again, it has that 4 patch. Thank you for your daily heart, May. It has, and so there's 2 repeats. There's this repeat here, and then there's this half square triangle that has this block made of half square triangles that has the repeats. So there's 2 different repeats, but it's quick. So we have, for all the other blocks, we've made a lot of half square triangles. So this should be a quick sew to get this block done. Okay. So I'll show the book again throughout as people come in, but we are working on what is called the Windflower Block tonight. And this really should be quick. Keyword is should. Okay. So, don't hold things to me when I say that they should, and then I'll mess up and then it'll take longer. So the first block is going to look like this. Thank you, Coco. So the first block looks like this. There's a little bit of hangover right now because we need to put a seam in here, but we're going to construct the first 2. And the way that we're going to construct them is just that we're going to sew a white to a colored piece of fabric, and then we are going to sew them together to these strips. So let's get this going. Everything has, in most quilt patterns, everything is thank you. Everything is a 1/4 of an inch. So we're just going to take this to the machine. Let me move it over just a little bit. And we're going to do a 1/4 of an inch. How is everybody this evening? I know we are at the late hour, but I was like, oh, you didn't do your block. So I need to get my block out. And so we will get this done, like I said, and get this done quickly. Everything that I like to do for the most part is done in batches, just because for me it's easier than to do each thing one by one by one by one. Hey, Miss Geraldine. And I received my package in the mail. I'm so excited about doing my block, my quilt. I can't wait for this mystery quilt. Okay, so we're just going to take these and we're going to press them. So again, we're just working on the first 2 units of the block, of the actual quilt block. It's a fairly decent sized quilt block. I think my iron was not as hot as I would like it. And then it will look like this. Okay. And then we'll take this one out. And again, if I press the seams open, I just like to give it a little bit of a finger press first, just because it helps me to get it open, and then I'll press it from there. Hey, Lavette, how are you doing today? Okay. So it'll look like this. And I want to make sure that I get this in the direction, because let me tell you, you know I can mess up. I need to make sure this goes in the direction it's supposed to go in. Of course, I muffed that up real that quick. I didn't get it on the fold. Okay, and so it's going to look like that. And I just need to make sure that I have that right. So now we're just going to connect these 2 pieces together. So again, right sides together. I'm not using pins. If you are a beginner, my suggestion is to use the pins, because it will help you to, number 1, keep these straight seams going in the direction that you want them to go into. Number 1. But sometimes I just don't use them. Okay. Again, I want to make sure that they're going in the direction that they're supposed to be going in, because if they're not, then it's going to mess up the way that this is going to look. So I need to make sure I'm following the pattern for this, because one of the prints for the top block is print and one is white. So we want to make sure they're in the right order. And again, everything I've already cut out. I'm using the Jolly Bar. I use 2 Jolly Bars from the Denim and Daisy line. You do not have to use Jolly Bars if you are making the Jolly Bar quilts. You can buy the pattern book by itself and then use scraps or your stash. So you are not married to buying a Jolly Bar just because you get the book. Okay, so we'll take this back to our ironing board and we will press those seams. Once we press these seams, this part of the block is now done. So we just need to work on the half square triangles. We'll put those 2 pieces together, and then once those 2 pieces together, we will be able to finish the block. So again, we're just working on the block. The block is Windflower. Just making sure that I give this a nice press. You can choose to open your seams. You can choose to keep your seams closed. All of that is personal preference. Sometimes it makes more sense to open them when there's a lot of bulk, especially when you're using half square triangles, because there will be, in some cases, a lot of bulk coming to the center. Hey, Tootie B, how are you doing this evening, darling? Okay. So block number 1 and block number 2 are done. Okay. So we have those done. And we can set these aside. So now we're going to work on the half square triangles, and we have done enough half square triangles. So you need 2 squares. However, your half square triangles are going to come together, and you are going to put right sides together. I've already drawn a line from one corner to the other corner on a diagonal. I'm going to sew on either side of that line at least 1/4 of an inch. If you're scared of your 1/4 of an inch, go a little less, because it's easier to square the quilt block down than it is to try to pull it to get it to be a little larger. So we're just going to take this under our machine, and we're going to sew down one side of the line, and with these already marked, it really doesn't take that long to put these half square triangles together. So we're taking each piece, and again, I told you I like to chain piece. So because I like to chain piece, easily enough, I'm going to do one right after the other, and then do the other side. So I only have 4 of these pieces to do. And again, this is quick. So I'll be amazed if this takes me, unless I mess up, if this takes me longer than an hour to do. This should take me probably under an hour. So I've chained these all. I'm going to just snip them, and then I'm going to do the other side. Okay, and again, how is everybody? I talked yesterday when I was on live. I was telling you how the old gray mare just ain't what she used to be. I went out skating with my little cherubs yesterday. I took them skating. Then these little buggers asked if I was gonna get on skates, and I was like, okay, here I go showing off. And I got on skates, and I haven't been on skates in over 20 years. I want to say it's probably been almost 25 years. And I got on those skates. And it's not like, it's a workout, but it's not a workout. The problem is that your feet are not used to having the weight. Hey, Monica. And so it was a lot of getting adjusted to, so it's like a workout. So I was like, yeah, that was lovely. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And then the next morning, I was like, girl, you gotta get out of bed. Okay. So I have 1, 2, 3, and here's 4 half square triangles, have a stitch on either side of the line. So we're just going to take our ruler, and we're going to line it up with that line as best as we can. We want to make sure that the stitches are out the way, because we don't want to cut the stitches. That's the most important thing. And we're just going to cut these squares in half. So each of the 2 squares will make 2 half square triangles. And again, you are not married to the jolly bars to make this. I think there's a little bit more room for error when you use a bigger, if you use bigger fabric than a jolly bar, but you know, it's the pattern goes for it, and so you have your measurements for the jolly bar. But if you're used to sewing and quilting, you can kind of figure out how much fabric you'll need. So you could do just a little bit of math, and you'll be fine. Especially if you use scraps, because this could be completely scrappy. Okay. Whoops. That didn't cut all the way through. And not that snips are the best thing to use for this, but it'll be too much like right to pick them scissors up. Okay. So all the half square triangles are cut. And the next thing we just need to do is press them. And we're going to press them so that we can, if we need to, square them up or square them down. We say square up, but technically it's kind of hard to square it up. So because the block is going to be bigger than what once you cut it, its final size is going to be. So technically you're squaring it down. So we say squaring up, but really we're squaring it down. I think square up sounds better. Just make sure that those seams are nice and open. And again, sometimes with half square triangles, we prefer to have those seams open. And so we kind of press them open. And then we press the other side to help that block lay flat. So remember, there should be 2 of each color, because we did 1 square of 1 color with a white square to create the half square triangle. And then when we draw the line down the center and then create the 2 seams, you're making 2 blocks once you cut them in half. And we're just giving that a good press. And we'll do the next one. And again, the picture kind of shows a little bit more of a mixture. And part of the reason why the picture in the book, and I'll show it to you again, has a little bit more of a mixture than what I have is because I'm only making 1 block. So it could have, if you're making a quilt or if you're using scraps, it can have more of a scrappy look. But because we're using the Jolly Bars, it's going to be a little more uniform, which is fine. You know, it depends on the look you're going for. Now, if I had not made a block every week for this particular sample or quilt, I could have mixed and matched my half square triangles a little bit, and I could have gone for more of a mixed look. But again, like I said, for this block, I'm fine with the way that it is going to turn out with having so many colors that are so many blocks that are going to look the same. So from each Jolly Bar, we're getting 4 half square triangles. Okay. And that's why I said, because at first I was like, I'm not going to do a video. And then I was like, you know what, maybe you need to, because it's going to make a difference when you do the layout, because it will be a little different if folks are not using their stash. So again, we're just opening up that center seam. Sometimes your iron, especially if you have a craft iron, will automatically open up those seams when you press it. Sometimes when you're using a full-size iron, you'll be burning your fingers trying to do it that way. And so I like to start it off a little bit with my fingers and then go from there. Give it that good press. So I press it open and then I press it flat. Okay, I didn't miss anything. So hello, 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 everyone. It is Happy Wednesday. We are working on the Windflower quilt block. This is from the Jolly Bar Sampler 5 book. And Jolly Bars, again, are exclusive to Fat Quarter Shop. They are pre-cuts, 5 inches by 10 inches. And the great thing about pre-cuts is that you get to see a selection of fabrics that are all part of a collection. Sometimes when you're trying to pick out your next quilt, you may say, you know what, I want everything to be from a particular brand or a particular line. So you can see all of the prints in the line if you buy a charm pack or if you buy a mini charm pack. And then you're like, well, okay, now I got this fabric left over. What do I do with it? You can make a quilt out of it. You can make a project out of it. So it doesn't have to be wasted fabric because you want to see the samples or all of the prints that are in a particular collection. There are almost about 40 to 42 cuts in the pack, but that's not 40 or 42 different prints. It depends on the collection. There may be 20 different prints in the collection. And if there's 20 different prints, then that means that they need to give you at least 2 of each cut or each print to make up that 40. Okay. So here are all my blocks, and I will show you again. This is the Jolly Bar 5 book. So here is the book. This is volume 5, so there are 4 other volumes with it. This book will make 20 Jolly Bar quilts. We're not making 20 Jolly Bar quilts. We're taking a block from 10 of them to make a sampler quilt. So we have one more block after this week, and then we'll be putting this whole quilt together. So I've marked in here, and there are directions on their website for which blocks you need, but I marked them, giving them all dates, so I knew when I was doing each one, and I could keep all that straight because, yeah. So we are currently working on the Windflower, which is here. And like I said, you can see all the colors that are there. Mine is going to be a little bit more the same because of the way that we cut the blocks out for the Jolly Bar. So this is what we're working on 12/17. By 12/17, I need to do the X's and the O's. So that's what I'll be working on. Hey, Annette, how are you doing? So again, here is the book. And for 20 quilts, this is really a good deal for the book. Okay. So they give you the measurements for each of the blocks. Sometimes when we cut them, we can be exact. Usually we get a square ruler that has a diagonal line that we can use and lay it right on top of our half square triangle block to make sure everything lines up the way that we need it to line up. We know what the measurements are for our block, and then we just need to cut off the excess. Now, this is not necessarily the ruler that I like to use when I'm doing this one, but because I have a small one, but I think I took it upstairs, and I'm not going up there to get it. So I just need to make sure that I spy with my little eye the right measurements as I am cutting this, because, you know, I will cut this crooked. So I'm just going to I spy with my little eye. Make sure everything lines up the way that it's supposed to. And the one thing that I like about my other ruler is that I can kind of sort of see it a little bit better than I can with this one. Okay, and we'll make sure that we haven't lost our minds. And let's do, typically I won't do one block, but we will make sure that we're lining everything up. Again, we're using their measurements to determine what this needs to look like. And we're just turning this 180 degrees so that we're getting the measurements the way that they need to be. Okay. And I need, of course I closed the book, right? So we're going to try as best as possible to make sure that everything lines up the way that it needs to. And again, you can piecemeal this if you like, or you can do them all in one shot. That is totally up to you. I like to get a certain part over with because I can get into the rhythm a little bit more if I'm doing everything at the same time, the same way. So my scant 1/4 inch allows me to have this left over, but you see it's not much. So you should not be cutting a whole lot off. If you're cutting a whole lot off, you're probably wasting fabric. So we just need to be shaving a little off so that we can get good cuts. We're making sure that our measurements are what the specs are for the pattern. Measure twice, cut once, because you can't go back and cut it again, especially if you cut it too small. Okay, we have 4 more that we need to do, and I didn't do them in any particular order, so I don't even have the 4 that I need to finish the one block to finish one. So we'll just get all these done. But it really doesn't take that long to do this. And when you're making a block, my suggestion always is to square up as you go. That way, if there is some imprecision, I will use that bad word, imprecision, I don't know if that's a word or not, you'll catch it along the way, and it will guarantee that you have more uniformity. And that's what your ultimate goal is to try to get it, get all your quilt blocks, all your rows, everything to be as uniform as you possibly can. Okay, so again, I'm not using my fingers, I'm not using my mouth to count, but I am looking at that very closely to make sure that I am counting twice and cutting once. So I'm lining up everything and I am counting to make sure that I have the right measurements. You can always mark off your blocks with tape. And then turning it again, making sure everything lines up the way that it's supposed to. And once it's lined up, just cutting off that excess. Hey Sierra, how are you doing? Make sure I didn't miss anything. And that I am so happy that you are doing well. Thank you, Sierra. Okay. And we are going to do one more cut. So again, I am working on the Windflower block for the Jelly Bar 5 sampler sew along. There's always time to still do this. All the videos are posted. So you can always go back and refer to those videos. This is sticking to my hand. In order to follow along, if you would like to do it and get some tips and tricks, you can always buy the book, make the sampler, or like I said, any of the 20 quotes that are in the book. Okay, so we cut up 8 half square triangles, and this is all of the stuff that we have. That's all going into my pile to create the next thing that I need to do. Thank you for your heart, me and the J. Okay, so I do need to check, right? So this is what I'm going for a look. Let me put my finger there and then show you So I'm looking for this look. So I need 2 of the colors on the inside and 2 of them on the outside. So it forms like a little hourglass in the center. So that's what I'm only doing this part of this block because we already did this part, because we have those right here. So our hourglass naturally is going to consist of 2 blues and 2 light oranges. And we're going to form an hourglass, and we're going to make a decision on what that hourglass is going to look like. And again, if you use more colors because you're making more than one block, or because you scrapped it, this could look a lot different. It's still going to have 2 white triangles here and 2 white triangles here, but you might have 4 colors instead of 2. You might decide to do 1 color because you want to do something a little bit more two-toned. Again, that's totally up to you. So I can either have blues in the center with the lights out, or I can decide to have the lights in the center with the blues out. So because I use such a light fabric, this is going to read, if you will, more of like a white center because it's so close to the white. So it kind of reads like a very white muted center. This way, you'll have a little more contrast if the blue is in the center. So it kind of reads like a white block out this way, but at least you see the breakup of this in here. So if this is the way you prefer it, that's the way you work it. But again, it's totally up to you which way you want to lay it out. You just want to make sure your layout is the way that they laid it out in the pattern so that you have the same look. So we're just going to stack our fabrics on top because we're going to sew these the same way. And as we said in the past, what does this create? 1, 2, 3, 4. It creates a 4-patch. So because this creates a 4-patch, we can take one and flip it over, and then the bottom and flip it over, and just chain stitch, and then put the rows together. So we're going to flip over these to line them up, and then we're going to stitch. The great thing about this for me is that I'm going to make sure that I have the right sides doing it that way, because if you turn them the wrong way, you're going to have a different type block, and you will be seam ripping. And then let's do the second one, same way, just lift it right up from where it is. And then take it to our machine. So unit 1 of 2 is now stitched, and we just need to put the rows together. And now we're doing unit 2. Same way, just flip, flip. Hey, Carmen. And then we're going to do these. So again, anybody coming in, we are just working on the Windflower quilt block. It is number 9 in the 10 that we had to create. And you all know I gotta wait another 2 weeks before I can post the final block, and the final block is X's and O's. And I think the final block is the one that's gonna take a little bit more work to make those X's and O's, but that's okay. The great thing is that I had 2 weeks to cut the fabric out, and then all we need to do is put it together. Get my clips, everything is done this way. I'm going to clip the second right in between the 4 blocks, so 2 are together at a time. Why am I doing it that way? Because when I open this up, number 1, I can check to make sure they're in the right order. Number 2, the units are already together. Okay, so these are still connected. I can see that it still forms that hourglass in the center. I can take this to my machine to my iron, and I can press them if I need to, or I can do it the way that I do it, which is not to press them. But that, again, is up to you. You're going to have to press it at the end, but sometimes, you know, we like to skip certain pressing steps. Again, that's totally up to you. So I'm going to open up the seam because I do want to iron these flat. I don't always iron my seams flat for quilts. It depends on the type of quilt. Again, I am partial to have square triangles when it comes to pressing open those seams. And that's because there's a lot of meat up for the half square triangle at the point, and I want them to lay as flat as possible. And when you go to long arm and or quilt them, you don't have those humps to go over. You don't have as thick of a hump. Let me take that back, because you're still going to have a hump. And just so I talked about it, so you can see right up here in this corner, or not in this corner, but on this side, all of those seams, 1, 2, and 3, are all meeting up here. So since all those seams are meeting up, if you open it up, it kind of distributes the weight on either side of the center seam. Okay. So everything is together for this one. We're going to fold it on top of each other to create the block. As you know, this is when I use clips, because I want those center seams to line up as best as I possibly can. Because I opened the seams up, they don't nest as nicely as they would as if I pressed to one side. And I'm going to clip it just to make sure that everything is nice and perfect. Make sure my ends are straight. Take it to my machine and stitch. And that'll finish this piece of the block, or the mini block that I'm getting ready to do. Just make sure everything is nice and neat. We'll do the same thing to the other one. Okay, and then both of these blocks will be done. These blocks are done, and then all we need to do is put everything together. So this is a great thing about this. This is not meant, like, these blocks really don't take that long. And even in haste for what I'm doing here with the videos take longer. Why? Because I'm stopping, I'm talking, I'm interacting, answering questions. And so then it takes a little longer to do the block. So when you are thinking about doing the quilt blocks or any of the sew-alongs, don't judge by how long it takes me to do a live to say, wow, that took a long time to do, because there's so many extra things that I'm doing in the live. So a lot of these blocks, like when I look at them, I can tell, oh, this is going to be quick. So that's why I was like, okay, I'll do 10 o'clock, and I know I'll still be in bed at a decent hour, because I knew it wasn't going to take long to put this together, given all the pieces. And given the fact that it's not like I have to cut them out, because I've already done that pre-cut work the week before. So this quilt along is every other week. And so because the block is every other week, I take the time to cut out everything on the off week. And then I can mark my half square triangles, do everything else I need to do. And then all I'm doing this week is putting everything together. We'll line everything up, take it back to our machine. You can, if you like to do a little bit of a back stitch, we're running over everything. Okay. We'll snip those. Slide this out the way for a second. We'll open this up. And if we did everything the way that we're supposed to, look how that corner is. Look how that center right here lines up. It doesn't always happen that way for me. Like you could, if you could see it, it's a little over to the side for this one, but that's close enough. And again, unless you're in a quilt show, and I'm not even saying they're going to see that, but unless it's being judged and juried, nobody's going to notice that, you know, because nobody is looking at your stuff that close to see that it's a little off, unless you were my mom. Now, my mother might look at that stuff, but nobody else would. If I, you know, or a quilter, right? So if you put it, if you post it, and not that they really say anything, because a good encouraging quilter is not going to sit back and say, girl, your stuff is off by a minuscule of an inch. Now, if you ask for suggestions, you know, I might say, hey, like if you try this, you know, you might not get that. But I'm not looking to see that something is off because, yeah, there's not a lot of perfection in all quilts. Okay, so we press that one. I'm just going in for this center seam here and pressing that open. And then once we press this open, we'll be able to lay everything out. And we will look at the pattern to see how it gets laid out, just to make sure that we do that right. And again, I do 2 presses when I do this. I press the seam open, and then I press the seam flat. So right now, this is pressing the seam flat. Sometimes you will hear like the steam in my iron because I may have, let's say, got up in the morning, ran down in the basement, got the sweat t-shirt that I needed to wear to work because I didn't bring it up the night before. And sometimes I'm putting water in the iron, but typically whenever I am doing quilting, I very rarely use water. So you're just pressing, you're not ironing. Now, okay, they should look identical if I did this right. Okay, everything is straight. I do want to make sure that my blocks measure what they are supposed to measure, so I can line everything up. Make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do. And if it's doing what it's supposed to do, then I don't have to do a lot of squaring up. And I shouldn't have to because I squared up earlier. So again, the more squaring up you do, the better off you are, okay? Didn't even check these. But I think I'm good on this, but I can see it has a little bit off on it, so I do want to square that up. Let me just make sure. And I mean, we're talking about a little bit. It's just a little bit off. Okay, because I saw it on this side, and you can see how much that was. Let me just make sure this one's straight so I can put all this together. Thank you for 1.8K likes. I appreciate you for tapping the screen, for acquiring your daily heart meet with me. We know that is all part of the TikTok algorithm for determining your engagement. Okay. clean that up a little bit. There we go. Okay. So let's put this whole thing together. So we're going to look at the direction to see what this is going to look like. So it should be here and here. This should be here and here. And this is going to be here and here. So this is what my final block is going to look like. Now, if I wanted to, I could have mixed this up and had the blues out here. And then this would have given me a light in here and a blue in here. But again, you know, that's up to you. But this is the way that you want to make sure that this goes according to this. So for here, your strip, one is up top, as it is here with the green. One is down here in the corner for the orange. And then you can see that the two boxes are in the center, and you can see the two half square triangles are in the center. So I'm following their direction. Okay? And again, what do we look like we have? A 4-patch. So because it looks like a 4-patch, we can treat it like a 4-patch. That means everything gets flipped over, and then we sew those two sections together, and then we sew the whole thing together, and then the block is done. So again, this is where I use my clips. I do those blocks should line up. So since the blocks should line up, I do want to clip them so that when I sew them, they line up here. If they, and that's checking your pattern, because not all blocks will line up. Not all the seams will be exactly even. And if they're not, then it doesn't matter. But if they are, it does. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To the Rickety Bot. Thank you so much for sending those. Okay, so that's one. And again, people make mistakes. So the good thing about this is that you always want to check, because even when you're thinking you're doing it right, if you turn your head for 1 minute and you just kind of push the blocks a little bit, you might be sewing the wrong two together. So it's always important to check, not to go too far ahead and make assumptions, because I can't tell you how many times I have put a block in the wrong place, and it is rippity rip rip. Okay. So here we go. Again, we left them together, so they are still chained together. And when we open this up, prayerfully we didn't move anything, and we should still have the same block. Okay, so now that we've checked that, we're good. We know we can press these, and then we can sew the last ones, and then we're done. So we'll take these back over to our iron, and we'll press them open. And then Windflower Block will be finished, except for my press. I do have to do that before I show the final block. But this will be finished. And then we will have one more block that we need to work on. Thank you, Sierra. We'll have one more block that we need to work on before we're able to put this whole thing together. So there are some additional things that I will have to put together after the final block. And what I mean by that is, if they're sashing between the blocks, I'll have to cut those. So that I'm pre-prepping and getting those together. So I'm not just thinking about the block at this point. I'm also thinking about any of the extra strips that I'll need to put the whole quilt together. This is called Denim and Daisies. The fabric collection is called Denim and Daisies. It's on the Fat Quarter Shop website, and it is part of their pre-cuts for the Jolly Bar collection. If I'm not mistaken, I believe those pre-cuts come in other, like the collection comes, it may come in something other than a Jolly Bar, but don't hold me to that. But again, if you're deciding to do a quilt like this, you can absolutely use your scraps. You do not have to use the Jolly Bars if you don't want to. And I know Kimberly, for hers, she is using, and she is Kimberly Jolly for Fat Quarter Shop. She's using layer cakes because she decided to do something different, and that's okay. Because when you're the boss, you can do what you want. So we're gonna line everything up. Use our clips. About to say, I thought I was short a clip. I thought I pulled out enough. Your preference may be pins. It is totally up to you. Okay, so I have all my clips in here. Make sure my ends lined up, and I'm going to run the final stitch for this block. Again, all seams should be, keyword is should, 1/4 inch. Everything is there. Let's press it open and reveal the final block. Oh, really? I absolutely love to do things in pieces and parts. I think that, first of all, it goes together for me better than doing it in rows. And I love seeing it come together. Like, I'm impatient, so I want to see that it looks like something. I don't want to, I can't visualize the rows, but I can visualize the blocks. And what I like about this, again, you know, is that you could have, like, I could have sewn this in rows. Some of these blocks. This one works better to do it like the 4-patch, but, you know, if you can sew it in rows, but I don't like to do it that way. I prefer to sew it in 4s. I work better with 4 patches, and I feel like I see the results better. So I won't even look to see what the pattern says for putting this together. If I see a 4-patch, I'm doing a 4-patch. Just because that makes sense to me. And as long as it doesn't disturb the pattern, it's fine. But don't worry, it's not a problem. So you actually have, like, they're like mini blocks. So this is a mini block, right? And it's going, what we're doing is creating what is the Windflower block. So we're using smaller blocks to create this bigger block. And again, some people will use steam. It is not the end of the world. just know that if you use steam or anything else, like if I use, like I'm getting ready to, a little bit of spray starch, I don't need to use a lot, because as you wet the fabric, especially with pre-cuts, unless you starch the heck out of them before you got started, sometimes the cotton will shrink up on you a little. So you don't want to place a lot on there and have it shrink up a lot, because it could shrink almost like an eighth of an inch, and it could throw off your final piecing of putting all those blocks together. It shouldn't, because you can kind of still kind of ease it out a little bit, but sometimes when I'm trying to get over those humps, I will use a little bit of starch, because I don't have steam and iron to do that. Yeah, it is. It can be a lot of work. There are some blocks that are much easier than others. And because they're much easier than others, it's like, okay, well, she didn't put a lot of effort into that one. And, you know, and then there are others, it's like, it looks like, oh, wow, that was difficult. And it really wasn't. It just depends on how you construct the block. And to be quite honest with you, half square triangles and me are not friends. I'll do them, but, you know, if I can avoid them like the plague, I will. I'm just adding a little bit of starch just to give this a little bit of stiffness. And again, if everything isn't perfect, it's not the end of the world. Okay. So nice and pressed. And here is the Windflower block. The Windflower block is finished. Move that over there. So everything is in place. Let me turn it the way that it makes sense to me. So everything works the way that it works. And again, this will look different in some ways. It's the same block, but it looks a little bit different from this, because in this block, they mixed everything up. This makes 12 by 12. This makes, you need 12 of these to create the Windflower quilt. So you would be making 12 of these in order to make a whole quilt, if that's what you were doing. We're only making this one block. But if you were making 12 of these, you could mix and match your colors so that it gives it more of a scrappy look than this one is. So it just depends, but I like it because the collection works together well, and I'm okay with this. So like I said, I could see when I was looking at this, when I was going through and figuring out what this would look like, I was like, you know what? This isn't going to look like this, because when they give us our measurements, we used a Jolly Bar for this piece, and then we cut Jolly Bars for some of the other pieces in half, and then we subcut these here. So I only used a Jolly Bar for this, a Jolly Bar for this. I used a Jolly Bar for these, so that was 2, 3, 4, 5. So I used 5 Jolly Bars. It didn't make sense to use 10 of them to give it more color, because then I would have had a lot of scraps left over. And so I didn't necessarily want to cut into Jolly Bars to do that. But again, you can do whatever makes sense for you when you're putting it together. The other thing is that, again, depending on where you're coming in the process, if you're going to get this book, and again, the link is in my bio for this, if you are going to get the book and you're going to do all these blocks, if I can zoom in just a little bit more, most of those blocks have half square triangles, and they're all about the same size. So because they all have half square triangles and some of them are the same size, you can interchange some of the half square triangles that you have up here, let's say for refractions, and use them down here for the wildflower. We did these in part for the sew along, so we didn't pre-plan to take something from here and use it up here, because in theory we hadn't cut this one yet. So you can mix, if you're making your own and you're thinking this through, you can absolutely mix and match them so that you get a more a more scrappy look, like I said, if that's what you choose to do. So again, if you need the name, if I can get to the first page again, okay, it's right there. So if you need the name of the book, again, this is the Jolly Bar Book, Volume 5. And this can be found, thank you for the rose, this can be found on the Fat Quarter Shop. So it's the Fat Quarter Shop. That link is also, again, it's in my bio. The link will take you straight there. There are 20 Jolly Bar quilts in this book. So they're all 20. We are only using 10 of the blocks from the 20 quilts to make the sampler. So the last one that we will be making in 2 weeks is the X's and O's. Once we finish that, hey, Julian, once we finish this one, we will be done all the blocks, and then we will be ready to put the whole sampler together. Don't ask me what I'm going to do with it yet, but so far I have gifted all of my Jolly Bar quilts to family members. So I need to figure out if I have a family member who's going to rock with orange and blues. So Denim and Daisies is made up of different shades of blue, orange, and then whites. So once I put this together, I'll make that decision on possibly who's going to get the quilt. So this book here is great. If you are looking for something for the quilter in your life who may want some easy blocks to make, this is a great book to get, and it's under 12. So 12 is, like I said, 12 for 20 is a great deal. And then you just decide what you want to do. Usually a pattern could be 8, 9, right? And so that's for one, and you're getting 20 of them. And so even if you make 1 or 2, it's still worth that value. So again, this is from Fat Quarter Shop. This is the Jolly Bar book. And I did not see my puzzle piece, but if I look at the time, it only took me like less than an hour to make the block. So we finished the entire block. Again, that's with talking and everything else. So this block would absolutely go faster without all the commentary. So you can make this block and as well a whole quilt for the Windflower Block, if that's what you so desire. So thank you again, everyone, for joining me. This was a quick sew. The old gray mare is not what she used to be. Yesterday was a long day with a little bit of sleep. And so now that I have the opportunity to capture about an hour back, for tomorrow, I am going to put these bones to bed because they are tired from trying to hang with the youngins and skating yesterday. So hopefully I'll recover by this weekend. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for tapping the screen with the likes. Oh wow, we got to almost 14. Okay, so thank you for that. Thank you for helping me to get to my goal. Thank you for the roses. Thank you for you capturing your daily heart meets with me today in terms of earning your engagement points for TikTok. And again, I will post all of these to YouTube so that if you need to go back and look at them, so please make sure that you are following me at G Hill Designs on YouTube. That link is in my bio as well. All of the blocks are there, so you can get them at that point as well. So again, thank you everyone. Have a great evening, and I appreciate you.